Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is the 2020 TRD Camry. Now, most of us are familiar with the Camry. It's a family favorite commuter sedan, but this Camry tries to distance itself from its family-oriented roots as much as possible. But does it really do that? Well, today I'm going to take a look at this TRD and see if it has anything that makes it special over its family-friendly brethren. Then I'm going to drive it and see if it lives up to its sports sedan classification. A small history of the Camry. It was introduced internationally in March of 1982. The name Camry originates from the Japanese word kanmuri, which means crown. Now, Toyota is no stranger in naming cars after crowns. The Toyota Corona, not a name that ages well today, or the Toyota Corolla, both mean crown and small crown, respectively. Originally a compact car, the Toyota Camry has grown over the generations. That brings us to today with the XV70 generation. Debuting at the 2017 North American International Auto Show, it received generally positive feedback for its updated body style and more aggressive styling. Apparently that just wasn't enough because Toyota came out with this, the TRD Camry in 2020. TRD, of course, standing for Toyota Racing Development. Not something you really think of when you think of Camry. Now, Toyota is only producing 6,000 of these for the 2020 model year and more for the 2021 model year. The exclusivity of this car is slowly dwindling, but that doesn't stop people from flocking to dealerships to try and claim theirs. These cars flew out of dealerships, and now let's take a look at the vehicle and try and piece together why. So starting at the front of the TRD Camry, you won't see a whole lot. The only interesting feature that they added to this car is this down here, this very aggressive looking front body kit splitter thing. And I can't find anywhere on if this is functional or not. It looks cool. It's finished in this midnight black metallic. It actually has a blue metallic flake in it. It's actually kind of wild. I like the color, but I can't figure out if it's any kind of functional or not. Toyota just won't say, which usually isn't a very good sign. Now maybe from this angle you can see just how nice this metallic shine is with all the blue flake. It's actually kind of wild. Now, one interesting thing to note is this TRD badge does not come on the Camry TRD, at least not on the front. I actually added that as an aftermarket piece. Kind of a shame considering the status that Toyota has tried to place on this Camry. Moving back, we see this Toyota emblem, nothing special, very standard. And on every Camry, at least, this actually houses your sensors for your frontal collision assist and your radar-guided cruise control. Toyota didn't want these weird blocky cutouts like you see on some other vehicles, so they house everything in this unit right here. Another thing I like is how intricate this little emblem is. It is actually looks like a separately molded piece, 3D piece, the Toyota emblem, and then clear put over it. So it's kind of 3D when you look at it in different angles. Now the TRD didn't get the super special triple swoosh LED looking headlights that the XSC and XLE trims got. And as a matter of fact, these are your standard headlights from your SE Camry. They do get the automatic high beams, just like on the SE and your other trim levels, but nothing particularly special. Although I have to say, I do like these little fins here, these 4 fins stacked vertically. I think it gives it a slightly more aggressive look over your regular Camry. It's also on the side of your other light as well. Now, moving to the side here, you can see that we have these kind of low profile tires. They're not like super low profile like on, say, a Type R or something like that, but they are semi-low profile. They got this ridge here that sticks out beyond the rim to protect it from curbs, very hard. And then of course you have your rims, and good thing these tires have these ridges because these are 19-inch TRD specific rims. These are actually about, I forget, they're about 8 pounds lighter a piece than the standard SE or XSE Camry rims. A little bit of unsprung weight translates into slightly better acceleration times. Of course, you can see you have your red painted brake caliper. That's how you know the vehicle is fast and edgy. Not really, but you'll notice it's a dual piston unit on the front. For the TRD Camry, it gets brakes that are about 0.8 of an inch bigger than your standard Camry brakes. That's because you have to stop faster if you're taking this to the track, of course. And you have your dual piston unit up front, a few upgrades over the standard Camry. Now, important to note, these valve stem covers are not stock. I put those on myself. They say TRD right there as well. Moving down the side, we have these mirrors. They're finished in the same midnight black, just like the roof panel. And then down here, we have this crazy arrow catch side skirt thing. Just adds to the aggressive styling of the car. Again, no one has told me if this is actually functional or not. I assume it adds a little bit of downforce, but no one really knows. Now we have moved to the back of the TRD Camry, where things start to get a little interesting. As you can see, you have this spoiler here on top of the trunk lid. You've got your black Toyota badges, black Camry. You got your TRD badge here, and this crazy thing down here. Now I have to say, the spoiler and the lower diffuser have to be some of my favorite things about this car. I just think it looks a lot more aggressive. It gives it a nice stance. It's not crazy like something you'd see on the Type R or some kit car. It actually translates into the body lines of the car very well. Again, finishing the beautiful midnight black metallic that Toyota offers. I don't know how well you can see me right now, but that's not particularly important. I'm trying to show off this big piece here that you just don't get on other Camrys. This is part of the bumper. It's actually applied very well, and you get this diffuser. But on both sides, you get these giant chrome exhaust tips. This car comes from the factory with a catback TRD tuned exhaust. It gives it a pretty aggressive note. As a matter of fact, why don't we take a listen? And the thing about these exhaust tips is if you look close enough, they actually say TRD on them. And this is on both sides. You get the little laser engraved TRD, and it's actually done very well, might I add. Now moving on into the trunk of the TRD, there's a little rubber button just like on every other Camry. You just push it and the trunk pops open. I've got quite a bit of stuff in here because if you didn't guess already, this is my car. But of course you get this little cargo net back here. It's pretty nifty. I put my can of Fix-A-Flat in here in case I ever need it, so it doesn't go bouncing around in there, making a lot of racket, because you do hear that in the cabin. And of course, you get a floor mat that does in fact say Camry TRD on it. Take a look. Yes, you get the TRD specific floor mats just to be reminded that you're driving a sportier version of a Toyota Camry. Now, an important thing to note is I have removed this trunk liner. The car does come with one. It's not removed to save weight. They actually have it in there. I've removed it because I want to hear more exhaust note, and I've also done the same for the one under the hood as well. Both of these cars come with a trunk and hood liner, so before you get upset that Toyota didn't include one, they are in my closet at home. Now for the star of the show, the numbers you've all been waiting for. What is this car's engine output? Well, if you look very closely, you can see that it has a 2GR FKS V6, 3.5 liters. This engine pushes out 301 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 265 pound-feet of torque at 4,600 RPM. This is enough to push this Camry from 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds and run a quarter mile in 14.4 seconds. Now you might think to yourself, wait a minute, aren't those the exact same figures as a regular V6 Camry? Well, I've got one thing to say to you. You're absolutely right. This car performs exactly the same as your XSE V6 Camry. There's no engine tuning, there's no performance tweaks. It's the same engine with the same power figures. Kind of disappointing for a car that markets itself as a sports sedan and above all the other Camrys. Now we jump inside the TRD Camry. Of course, you'll notice you get these really nice silver sills that say Camry, and the Camry lettering is like inset. It almost is plastic, but it almost looks like glass. It's actually very nice. They got some water spots on them because I just washed the car, but they do look very nice. They're in the back as well, so all 4 doors. And of course, you get your Camry TRD specific floor mats, just like in the trunk. Apart from that, there's a few more interesting features in the interior that I will show you. If you come closer, you can see that the headrests have TRD stitched into them in red stitching. And the seats have this nice red stripe in the middle, and of course the Softex inserts that you would see in the SE Camry, except they have the red bars going across them. It actually looks pretty cool and unique over the other Camrys. Although personally, I would have loved to have seen this car with a cockpit red interior. It would really seal the deal. Unfortunately, that is not an option on your Camry TRD. Another thing you'll notice in here is that the steering wheel is a standard Camry steering wheel with the exception of the red stitching. There actually is red stitching on the underside here, all the way around. Gives it a slightly more sporty vibe. The horn button is the same, the chrome trim is the same, and you also get the paddle shifters at 9 and 3 that are mounted in the other Sports Edition Camrys. Moving to the floor, you will actually see the pedals. These pedals are actually sports pedals. They got that brushed aluminum looking finish with the little rubber grabby bits there. They actually look pretty cool. I like the gas pedal coming from the floor instead of the top, like in most other vehicles I've been in. It actually pushes down flat to the floor instead of, you know, pushing up and back like on, say, most SUVs and sedans of the era. So now you have a decent view of the driver's area of the TRD Camry. We will start going over a few interesting features. For example, when you start the vehicle, you get this nice TRD animation that plays on the screen. I don't know if you can see that. I'll get a better shot of it for you in a minute. Of course, you have your animation as well that plays on here. And then you push continue past all the safety warnings, and you have your home screen. Giving you a good view of the sport pedals I was talking about. You have your brake pedal right here, and the gas pedal is, of course, over next to it right here, and it is vertical. You have your red gauges in your gauge cluster here, something not seen on a standard Camry. And of course, you have your TRD shift knob for your 8-speed automatic transmission. Yes, so this car, though trying to be a sports sedan, doesn't come with a manual transmission as an option. You're forced to get the same 8-speed automatic that is in every other Camry. But don't worry, it is not in vain. Your shift knob now says TRD on top of it, so that every time you look down to put it into drive, you're reminded that you're driving a Camry that, well, is about the same as every other Camry. And moving down from your TRD label shift knob, you have your 3 buttons, Eco, Normal, and Sport. Of course, you can guess what these buttons do. They put you in your various driving modes. Eco will put you in Eco mode, which I never use, by the way. It's so painfully slow that this car feels like it has about 20 horsepower. Then you put it into Normal, and it just turns your little center display blue up in there and lets you know you're in normal mode. But that's for boring. That's for simps, right? We want to go into the most radical mode we can, sport mode. Now, when you put this in sport mode, it makes the transmission shift a little bit later. It turns your little center screen red, and it puts a little green, the word sport on your screen. Apart from that, I really haven't figured out what it does exactly. I know it makes transmission a little more aggressive, might make the steering a little bit more, but I really don't notice almost any difference. Down here you have your brake hold. This will hold the brake for you in traffic, so you don't have to. So if you commute in traffic a whole lot, it's actually a pretty good option. I have to applaud them for that. And then you have your electronic parking brake. Just simply push the brake pedal and push down on this. It will release the parking brake, or you pull up and it will engage the parking brake. You actually feel the brake pedal move under your foot when this happens. A little interesting to people that aren't used to it, but once you drive the car a little bit, you'll kind of get used to it. Moving on to the infotainment system of the TRD Camry. Of course, it's pretty standard stuff. You got your home, that's what this is. It gives you live gas mileage readings. You can even get a more detailed explanation of your gas mileage, as well as your current live gas mileage. You just push this button here, as well as your average speed, all sorts of stuff like that. You got your media here, favorite contacts here, stuff like that. Of course, you got your menu. You can get to all that from here. Apps, if you have the Toyota Entune Suite. It's a Linux-based system with open source. People can make apps for it. And of course, you push the button to update, and it'll download the update, which apparently I have to update my system. You can go to your more detailed audio here. This car has AM, FM, Sirius XM, Bluetooth, and Android Auto, as well as Apple CarPlay. You can also reorder them. So if you really wanted to do your, if you're listening to one thing a lot, you can just have it first. So a lot of customization there. I do like it. And of course, you got your map. Now, this car does not have integrated navigation. You have to install the navigation app on the Toyota website, or it will run through your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, whichever you prefer. I have an Android. You get some live readings of your cellular data, stuff like that, your phone's battery level. My phone is connected through Bluetooth and such. You can also go here with your phone. Of course, you will have your contacts, keypad, and select your different devices. You have your text messaging. Now, the hands-free device currently connected does not support that. It's probably my phone, but you can also go to your keypad, type in a number, all from the comfort of this screen. Now, interesting to note, you can shut the screen off by pushing this button here, but if you go to General, you got your contrast and your brightness that you can adjust. But what intrigues me about this car, you can actually change the theme. Some cars allow you to do that, but when you first get this car, this is the theme that the car comes with. Very interesting. It doesn't match the rest of the car at all. This is actually just the standard Camry head unit plugged into a TRD. They don't actually have a red theme set from the factory, so it doesn't match the rest of the car at all. Not saying that they should go to the extra time to select this at the factory, but it's just kind of interesting to me because this just suits this car so much better. So now it's time for some initial driving impressions of the TRD Camry. We're going to go ahead and get it right on the road, shift this 8-speed automatic into drive, put her in sport mode, and see how it runs. So, initial impressions, I know my face is quite dark. I've got the sun visor down because, God, I gotta use this one too. The sun is very bright. It's that time of day right where the sun is in your face no matter what you do. So, oh, we got another truck coming, hang on. So, anyway, initial driving impressions of the TRD, of course. It handles, you know, like you would expect. It's a little sharper than a standard Camry, I'll give you that. The steering is more responsive, you know. The suspension is a little stiffer. This Camry sits about 0.6 of an inch lower than a standard Camry, and it does have a TRD tuned coilover suspension. So it's not like snap your spine rough, but it is a little rougher than your standard Camry, so do keep that in mind. Cabin noise is not bad. It's like a regular Camry. It's got a little bit of wind noise, but it's not like can't hear yourself think road noise like a big SUV that doesn't have a whole lot of sound dampening options and stuff like that. Even modern SUVs though have come a long way. So sitting at the stoplight, you don't feel like you're driving anything special, you know? I mean, you don't feel like you're driving a TRD Camry. I mean, yes, you got a little bit of red stitching, red gauges, that's about it. It just doesn't feel like you would expect it to feel. I mean, you're sitting here, you're not like vibrating, you know, you don't sit super low to the ground. You don't see anything crazy when you look out. When you look in your rearview mirror, you see a little bit of that deck spoiler that we were talking about. But other than that, I mean, you don't really see much, you know, and it's just a bit of a letdown, you know. Off the line, it's peppy. You get some good exhaust note, but it's just not. It's not crazy, you know. It's not crazy loud. I like a louder car. I know for most people that's not what they want. They want something kind of subdued, and that is this. They did a good job at not making it too loud to where you're like, you know, you hear it, but it's not, you know, it's lower. It's kind of low strung, you know, on the low end, which is kind of cool. This car, it does turn heads. I get a lot of compliments on this car, just being like, oh, hey, you know, where'd you get that? What is that? I mean, it's a Camry, you know, it's obvious, but they're like, I've never seen one, you know, and you don't really see very many of these out there. They're actually pretty hard to find. There's only a few around me now because there's a dealership nearby, the one that I used to work at, and people try and snap these things up. They love the bejesus out of it, and I think it is because it's something different. You wouldn't expect a Camry to look like this, you know what I mean? You wouldn't expect a Camry to be a head turner, and it kind of is. It is a pretty car, I will give it that. They took something bland and made it into something that turns heads, especially in this supersonic red. Like, this red color is the rarest of the TRDs. It's really hard to find this red color. People don't generally you don't generally see a red one. All the auto reviewers have a red one, you know, all the automotive journalists. And I think that's because with the automotive journalists, Toyota wanted to put their best foot forward with this car and give them a red one. And that's the only reason that in a lot of the pictures online they're red. But in reality, I've only seen one other red one. And these cars have been out for almost a year now. You know, I used to work at a dealership, and I only ever saw silver and white. As a matter of fact, when I saw this red one, I actually bought it the day it came in because I needed something cheaper than my 392 Hemi. And if you look at this car, or any car in this price range, you know, performance range, in relationship to the 392 Hemi, it's going to be disappointing because it just doesn't have that punch. It doesn't have that raw experience. It's on a stick shift. It doesn't scream in your ear every time you put the foot down, you know. So you kind of have to look at it in terms of other cars like the Veloster N or the Honda Civic Type R, and it still is a bit of a letdown when you look at those other vehicles. I mean, sitting here, you've got your Camry steering wheel with your Camry shift knob. It just got TRD ingrained in it. You got your Camry seats, which are very comfortable. It's got power lumbar, power adjustable seats for the driver, stuff like that, but it's just not special, you know. It doesn't have the little red vertical line like a race car does on top of the wheel. The paddle shifters on aluminum. They're just the standard Camry paddle shifters. You know, this portion here just has some red stitching on it to call it unique, and it's just something that I just wouldn't think immediately that I was sitting in a TRD Camry. If you blindfolded me, put me in the car, and then took the blindfold off and said, what kind of Camry are you in? I would be like, oh, well, probably a Sports Edition, maybe an XSE, something like that. Unless I saw, you know, the TRD on the headrest or the shifter. I think if you're someone that wants a sporty looking vehicle without all the drawbacks of having a stiff, you know, high-strung sports car, you know, the bad gas mileage, the super high insurance rates, then this would be good for you. It really would be. But I think if you want something that really, really acts like a sports car, this would not be the car for you. I mean, going over these bumps, you can tell it bucks a little bit because of the the rebound tuning for this TRD suspension, but it doesn't, you know, try and throw you off the horse, you know. And no means am I like fighting to keep it going straight or fighting to not be like, ow, you know. It works pretty well. I mean, it drives really straight. I can go over all these bumps and it'll just still keep driving straight. The steering is very light, you know. It's like, you know, electric servo assisted steering like on most modern cars now. The steering feel isn't really there. I mean, I feel maybe a little bit of the bumps in the road, but I never actually feel exactly what the suspension is doing. Not like on even my Honda Element from 2008. I had it tuned a little bit, and there was an actual feel on the bumps, you know, on the steering and all that, and you could feel what suspension was oscillating when and all that fun stuff. But this is just kind of, you know, you can take your hands off and it'll, you know, do whatever, and you're kind of sitting there pointing the car. The car pretty much drives itself. You still have to pay attention, of course, but the car just kind of goes in a straight line and keeps the speed, you know, whatever you tell it to. It's very easy to drive, you know, just like your Camry is. I'm gonna put it in manual shift mode here. So now wait for all this traffic to be gone. There's quite a bit of it here, and then we're gonna do an acceleration. I'm kind of gonna show you what I mean by like the exhaust and kind of show you the acceleration factors that this car has. That was 60. That was 60 right there. You guys actually turned from the acceleration. That was pretty crazy. Back into automatic mode. The car is quick. I will give it that. For a Camry, the car is quick, but it's not any quicker than the other V6 Camrys. Not really. I mean, the sensations are there because of the tuned exhaust and the tuned suspension and the body kit, but it's not particularly just different. I mean, like I said, the sensation is there, but it's just not, you know, just not all there as much as you would want it to be. I mean, I like the red color because the red pretty much guarantees you have the brightest car at a stoplight, except maybe, you know, a yellow Hellcat pulls up or something. But for the most part, people like bland colors. And this is not a bland color. You do generally have a pretty bright car. You know, it's brighter than everyone else. There's just no sense of excitement when you're driving this car. No sense of, wow, look at that. You know, it's a Camry. And while Camrys are made very well, if you want something that's like a sports sedan or a sports thing, you know, it's just not all there. And I think that it would benefit from more horsepower or torque or something just to make it different. I mean, I know I have to compare apples to apples here, and I know it's not entirely fair, but this car's got 3,700 miles on it, and it's already kind of old. It's already kind of boring, you know? And, like, I put 8,000 miles on my Challenger in 2 months before I got rid of it. And it's just every day was a new adventure. Every day I was excited to get into that car and drive it again. Every day was just amazing. And this car, it's like, okay, time to drive my Camry to the grocery store, you know? And it's just not, there's just nothing that intrigues me about it. There's nothing that wants me begging for more. There's nothing that just wants me to push it farther or put more into it. It's just a red Camry with a spoiler, and it's just sad, especially the rates dealerships are charging people for these things. I mean, if you want one of these, even though MSRP is like $33 and starting, you're talking 40 grand out the door after dealer markup for a Camry, and you could go get a good deal on a Type R, you know, for 43, 44. I mean, the yellow limited edition ones that they just came out with for 2021 are like, man, the guys staying in your lane, are like 40, starting at 45. And it's unfortunate that this car just doesn't live up to those cars. You know, I mean, you can get a Type N, not a Type N, a Hyundai Veloster N for cheaper than this car at the end of the day, because there's not like insane markup on those. Like, there might be a little bit, but they're not marking this car up 7K just because it's a TRD, you know. And it's just, I saw a poor guy. He wanted a Camry, all right? It's his first new car, and he wanted a TRD, and he had a budget. He should have gotten that car with his budget, and they freaking turned him down because he didn't want to pay the 40K. And he sat there and talked to the salesperson and said, "Man, MSRP is 33. I know you're trying to rip me off." "Oh no, it's a TRD." Even the manager was like, "It's a TRD, man. You gotta understand, it's a TRD. It shouldn't matter. If you want it to be more expensive, Toyota needs to price the car at 40, not tell people it's 33 and sell it at 40. And I think for what people are paying for these, they could get something a lot better. I mean, it handles well. It corners responsibly. It's just, I don't know. TRD Camry is trying to be a sports sedan without putting in the work required to do so. With no engine upgrades or substantial performance upgrades, there's just too much to be desired. I mean, with how much dealerships mark this car up, I used to work at one, I kind of know a thing or two about that. I could go out and buy a Type R for not much more money. Or, if I wanted to have fun for the same amount of money, I could go buy a Hyundai Veloster N with a manual transmission and better performance all around. I mean, it's faster and it handles better. With too many alternative options and not enough to offer, the TRD Camry is an overhyped car that will soon fall by the wayside in face of the competition. Well, that concludes my thoughts on the TRD Camry. If you'd like to see more, don't hesitate to subscribe, hit the bell, get notified of when I upload. And if you have any vehicles that you want me to review, don't hesitate to shoot me an email at this email address, and we'll see if we can get out there and film more interesting cars from, well, I was going to say interesting people, but this is my car, so that would be doing a great service to myself, and it would feel kind of weird. But anyway, don't hesitate to subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. Again, I was going to say amazing content. I'm trying not to compliment myself here. This is a weird outro. I'm done. All right. Hey, you guys have a great day.